Welcome to We Don't Talk About That with Lucas Land. In any conversation, any relationship, there's a space between us, something that we can't ever completely understand. Other people are a mystery. Sometimes what separates us is obvious, it seems huge. Language, culture, religion, or politics. Sometimes it's more subtle, like personality or preferences. And most of the time we try to avoid talking about these things, whether we realize it or not. On this podcast, we want to explore those spaces, even when it's awkward. Especially when it's awkward. We all need to learn how to navigate these conversations, not to necessarily agree on everything or even find common ground, but to try and understand and empathize, to learn how to navigate the space between.
It's never the right place or time. It's imperceptible to the eye. It's never the right place or time. It's imperceptible to the eye. It's never the right place or time.
I can't believe someone would vote for them. I just can't respect them anymore. Those people just can't be reasoned with. You can't talk to them. They don't even listen. No matter what your beliefs or where you fall on the spectrum of left or right, liberal, conservative, this probably sounds familiar. Whether it's on social media or around the dinner table or the proverbial water cooler, more and more it seems the divides between us are growing deeper and bigger. We wonder how anyone could bridge these gaps between us, between you and your siblings, between the people you work with, between you and the people you love. You've probably heard at some point that old wisdom to never discuss politics and religion in polite company. But avoiding these topics doesn't seem like it's working out so well. As any good therapist will tell you, avoiding things you fear or that are difficult does not make them better or make them go away. It's gotten us through polite holiday meals, but it has not helped us learn how to have difficult conversations and how to understand people that are different than us. I started a sustainable landscaping company many years ago called Edible Lawns. Don't be too impressed. It was definitely a shoestring operation. I had no background in business, but I was idealistic. It was fun. I felt good about it, and I thought it might turn into something I could do full-time eventually. My first ever client was an older gentleman named Floyd. He lived in Crawford, Texas, where George W. Bush has a ranch. His email to me requesting a consultation was written just like he spoke. Now, I'll meet you at this restaurant. Used to be a Dairy Queen, but now it's a Mexican place. Pretty good food. I'll meet you there, and then you can follow me to my place. So I met Floyd at the Dairy Queen, turned Mexican restaurant. When he got out of his truck to say hi in the parking lot, I noticed his Ron Paul Revolution hat. And later, when I turned into his driveway, I noticed a large Ron Paul Revolution sign at the entrance. I wasn't passing judgment, but it was pretty clear that Floyd had some strong opinions. We spent about half an hour wandering around his yard, looking at some fruit trees, looking at his garden, and we ended up talking over his compost pile. I mentioned to him that people who seemed pretty different had gotten into growing their own food or sustainability for one reason or another, and somehow had found common ground. He looked at me earnestly, and he launched into this. Man, that's right. You wouldn't think it by looking at me, but I'm in there growing wheatgrass in my house and juicing it every morning. Man, you wouldn't catch me out there holding hands with Dennis Kucinich, but I don't think our boys should be over there either. Now, for those that don't know or don't remember, Dennis Kucinich was elected in 1996 as a Democratic senator from Ohio, and he ran for president in 2004 and 2008, and was always very outspoken against war throughout his career. That moment that I had with Floyd over a compost pile was one I will never forget. There was a connection between us. It felt like something important had happened, even though we were very different. We might not have agreed on many things. We found something that bridged that gap between us. In a lot of ways, I kind of just stumbled into that moment with Floyd. It was a happy accident that would be difficult for me to recreate. And I think life is full of such moments if we're paying attention. But part of me wonders if there are ways that we can prepare for such moments, or even create them on purpose. In some ways, that's what this podcast is about. Trying to understand the spaces between us and how to connect across those divides. And you and I both know that not everyone's like Floyd, somehow primed and ready to have a magical, bridge-building interaction that leaves you with a glow the rest of the day, feeling good about humanity for a change. More often, we get that punched-in-the-gut feeling when we read something online by someone we know, attacking an idea or a belief or a person that we care about. Our lizard brain kicks in and we rush to the defense. One of my hopes is that this podcast will be practical and accessible to you. I want to share tools and ideas, tips that are helpful to us in our ordinary lives and in our interactions on and offline. I'm not doing this podcast because I'm special or some kind of expert. I still struggle with the same things most of us do. There's some things I've found helpful. There's ideas and techniques that have helped me learn more about myself and how to communicate better with others. There have been people along the way who loved me enough to help me see my own failings and weaknesses. It's all hard work, but it's worth it. So I'm still learning and hope that I can share what I'm learning with others. I also feel really fortunate that I have gotten to know many amazing people in my life that are different than me. You probably know lots of amazing people in your life as well. I'm not too interested in big-name guests or high-profile people on this podcast, but I want to introduce you to people you wouldn't know otherwise, people who do have something to offer the world, not because they're well-known, but because they're good human beings with stories and insights and experiences that can help us learn and grow. And I hope that their stories will help us see more clearly the people around us that are equally incredible and get interested in their stories as well. It's part of the diverse human experience that we are not all the same. It can be difficult to understand people that we disagree with or people that come from different backgrounds. Sometimes even the people we love the most and think we know the best can suddenly seem like a mystery to us. The idea isn't to erase the space between us, but to learn better how to explore and cross over those spaces. And that also requires a certain amount of inner work, understanding ourselves and how we react to what the world throws at us. I recently got around to watching the surprise hit documentary, Won't You Be My Neighbor?, about the life and career of Fred Rogers. And I remember watching Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood growing up, but I was amazed watching the movie at his ability to address difficult topics such as war, racism, conflict, in a way that connected with kids without talking down to them. And in many ways, it also boiled down problems that adults often say are too complex for kids to understand. It boiled down those problems to something very deep and essential that also had something to teach the adults. And Fred Rogers was also a lifelong Republican and a Presbyterian minister, and in many ways he defies the political and ideological boxes that we seem to have created today for people to have to fit into. And he was able to subvert these divisions partly because he focused on things that were deeper, that transcended these divisions, things that make us all human. And I admit, through the tears I had while watching that documentary, I felt even more convinced that the idea behind this podcast is important and worth pursuing. So hopefully I can also point you to other books, websites, documentaries, other podcasts, and resources that can help us along the way. I'm looking forward to going on this journey with you and hope that together we can make some new paths for connecting and finding ways to make life more wonderful together. Thanks for joining us on this podcast. I hope you found it helpful in some way. If you did find it helpful, maybe you could share it with others. The best way to help us spread the word about this podcast is by rating and reviewing it on Apple Podcasts. Many thanks to Neil Curran and Infielder for the use of the music you heard on this podcast. You can find more of their music online at infielder.bandcamp.com. We would love to hear from you and get your feedback on the show or future topic ideas. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram with the handle @WDTAT Podcast, or email us at wdtatpodcast@gmail.com. A final thought from Brené Brown. The willingness to show up changes us. It makes us a little braver each time. So until next time, keep showing up and keep being brave.
What are you gonna do?
Welcome to We Don't Talk About That. 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 It's terrible.